back again with another limited edition 4K UHD release from Studio Canal and another Ealing Studios comedy film starring Alec Guinness. Alec Guinness, not to be confused with the Guinness beer, but Alec Guinness, who was in the original Star Wars trilogy playing Obi-Wan Kenobi. And you may know him from films like Lawrence of Arabia or Dr. Zhivago, but he was the main star of some of the best-known Ealing Studios comedies from the mid-40s to into the 50s. Now, these took place directly after World War II, and it kind of started the golden age of British cinema. I've already covered a few of these films, including The Lady Killers, Kind Hearts and Coronets, and The Lavender Hill Mob. Now, this is a very impressive, thick box set. Now, the movie we're talking about now is none other than The Man in the White Suit, which has just as impressive of a thick box set as The Lavender Hill Mob. In this video, we're going to talk about my impressions of this film. It is my first time checking it out. We're going to talk about this new 4K transfer. We're going to take a look at this packaging, and we're also going to rank these 4 films that I've done reviews on with Alec Guinness. And if you would do me a favor, if you would like this video. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films, and as you can see, I'm an avid physical media movie collector. I've been doing reviews on this channel for a little over a year now, and you can check out my previous content on this channel. So the first thing that happens when you pop this disc, well, you pop the disc and it goes into the main menu. You go to play the disc and it pops up with a little blurb that says, "Please note, this film reflects historical attitudes which audiences may find outdated or offensive." So we're starting to see this sort of thing before some films, and I just had my eyes rolling the second I saw it, but really, I still don't understand what it meant exactly. I didn't find anything offensive, unfortunately. I was looking really forward to getting offended by this movie, but it didn't happen. but that kind of thing, I guess it's better to have that in front of a film than to try to edit the movie in some way. Like they've done with Crocodile Dundee, and they've put out this encore cut, which is edited, and I haven't watched it, but I'm sure it's just, you don't take a movie and cut stuff out later on because you're offended by something that's in the movie. The movie, like I said before, is a comedy, but it's a very subtle British comedy, and in fact, sometimes it may not seem like a comedy at all, but it is also a satire, and it also is a little dark, but not as dark as their other films like this one or this one. It doesn't ever go to this type of level of darkness or death, but just the idea behind this is pretty outrageous. And so let's get into that plot. So Alec Guinness plays a modest but obsessive inventor. And the first part of the film, now it's called The Man in the White Suit, and that in some ways is a little bit of a spoiler for the film, because that white suit doesn't come into play until much later in the film. But Alec Guinness plays this inventor who kind of goes into these laboratories that are funded by these businesses or these corporations, and he somehow gets in there at an entry-level position and somehow is able to manipulate his way into starting to use the equipment. And apparently this equipment and what he's doing with these experiments cost the company a lot of money, and it takes them a little while to even notice that it's happening. By the time they notice it, it's like they're like, what happened here? And he gets kicked out of one, and then he goes to another and starts all over. But while that's happening, as an audience member, it's kind of like I'm not sure what exactly is going on with this plot, but you kind of sympathize with the character that he's playing, because he's got a goal, and he's obviously he's a very brilliant man who's got something in his head that he wants to create, that nobody in these corporations wants to listen to him until he finally does create it. But right when he creates it, he gets the formula. At that point, this one guy comes in and they figure out that what he's doing, and they end up like making him pour the formula out. But then somehow he gets like the daughter of the head of the business. The head of the business name is Alan Burnley, I think it's how you pronounce his last name, played by Cecil Parker. But his daughter, Daphne, played by Joan Greenwood, who's also in Kind Hearts and Coronets. But he convinces her that he's found something like this formula. He's found something. He convinces her to talk her dad into letting him do it, and then at that point they let him redo the experiment. Now, if he hadn't poured out that formula to begin with, a lot of what happens next wouldn't happen. Like there's experiments, he blows up a lot of the lab, and it causes like a lot of damage, and all of that's during the first half of the film. And before that happens, at one point, like Alec Guinness's character befriends some of the people working as the workforce at this clothing company, because he comes in and he basically like he starts in like an entry level position, just like moving things around, and then he befriends some of the labor or the workers, and so that's important for later on because they're kind of on his side for a while, and he eventually. What the formula is now during the second half of the film and what the white suit is all about, he has developed this fabric that is indestructible and it doesn't get dirty, and it's quite the idea behind that type of product. It's even later on in the film, like that type of indestructible like cloth could be used by the military. Even within what happens later in this film, they could still be used by the military. And at one point, you see him use it as something else. At one point, you see him use the fabric. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit, but he uses the fabric to climb out of a window. Just a string of the fabric. It's strong enough to hold him up. So it's a very strong fabric. They end up paying him for it, and it ends up being like a fantabulous. It ends up being a fabulous invention. But then an older head of the company comes in, and he's like, "Look, we can't put this out. If we put this out, it's going to put so many people out of business because now we got the manufacturers who are making these clothing. They won't have to make clothing again because you make this type of clothing." Then people probably won't have to buy clothes anymore. So it's just going to cause an economic disaster. And so Alec Guinness's character, Sidney Stratton, is the character that he plays. His character I guess he really he wants his invention to get out there. He wants to be credited for it. He wants the fame that comes with it. But he doesn't listen to anyone about the repercussions. At first he thinks the corporation is being greedy because they don't want to lose this business, which technically they are, but at the same time, and this is an interesting thing. Now this is where I say it gets dark, because if, say for instance, if this was a pharmaceutical company and they came out with the cure to cancer all of a sudden, or the cure to heart attacks or Alzheimer's, if they came out with a cure and somebody said, "Hey, here it is," would the same thing happen? Would these overhead people from the pharmaceutical companies show up and say, "Hey, we can't do this because if you cure cancer, you're putting all these doctors out of business. You're putting all these pharmaceutical people out of business." So it does have that kind of dark, biting satire if you apply it to that. Clearly, this is applied to the clothing industry, but it could be applied to any significant find that could benefit mankind, but it ends up for that time causing an economic turmoil. Now, the people who were on his side initially, like the workers, once they realize what's going on, they're going to be out of jobs, they're against him too. So it's like coming from both sides of being against him. And he's got this white suit that he's wearing for a lot of the second half of the film that he's created. And he's got this very unique white suit that won't get dirty, or it can't, you can't like break it. It's the only way to cut this material. They have to cut it with torches. It's really difficult to cut it. But so that's as far as I'm going to go into the plot of the film. But I think it is a very thought-provoking, strong idea, and it's also a comedy because of what happens in the film. It is technically a comedy, but it also is something that is very thought-provoking. Let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. I do like this cover. It's very red with a white kind of sticking out. It's an interesting choice to make it a very bold red on the cover. By the way, this film is black and white. I didn't mention that before, but it is black and white from 1951. On the inside, we have three things. That's what the back of it looks like. Whoop. We have three things. We have a booklet. We have a poster. And we have the disc itself. And here's what, let's look at the disc first. So there you go. That's what the back side of it looks like. It's just him looking in the mirror at the white suit. We have two discs. We have a 4K and a Blu-ray. The Blu-ray disc here is Region B. I wasn't able to play it in my Region A player. I'm working on getting a Region B player as well. I'll probably have one of those in the near future, but it is Region B locked, and you cannot play it in a Region A player. Region B is typically PAL or British. But I was able to play the 4K. It looks terrific. It is, like I said before, it is a black and white film, but I do feel, I don't have unfortunately was not able to view the Blu-ray, but I feel that this is an improvement upon previous ones. It looks very crisp, very clean. The darker areas do look like I do see a lot of depth in the shots that I would think if it was a SD quality, or even maybe, I would assume the Blu-ray here has the same transfer as this 4K, but you do see a lot of depth in the shots, and it looks quite good. Even you see a lot of detail in the closer shots. The master of this is quite well maintained, and you do see that film grain because it was shot on film, but it's there, but it doesn't distract. It's not like an overbearing amount of film grain. It looks very faithful to the original source material, which it seems to be in very nice shape. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this poster. Here you go, and this is what the poster looks like. Very similar to the cover. That's that, and it folds up in a way that you can put it back inside of the case. Here's the booklet. The booklet has there's a lot of red going on here. Maybe it's a little overwhelming with the red. Like with the Lavender Hill Mob, they went with that lavender kind of purple color, which is kind of cool that they did that. Unfortunately, I don't know if they have versions of these other two, like the limited editions, deluxe editions. I did get the slipped editions of these other two, but not these very thick ones with the poster and the booklet. There's Alec Guinness's character. And this first part is an essay just talking about Alec Guinness and his overall arc in the Ealing Studio films, covering these other ones that I've already done reviews on. Here's the laboratory when they first find his experiment. And so there's got like a lot of essays in here talking about Alec Guinness. And the first one here, the second part of it deals with Joan Greenwood, who was really the second build character here, the daughter of the guy who owns the corporation or the plant where they're making these the white suit eventually. But she was also in Kind Hearts and Coronets. It's nice to have these booklets. They have a lot of information, a lot of essays that people have written. In the back, we've got like some more promotional type of material. It's quite nice. I really like. It's nice to have this type of. There's more press stories, this type of physical media when it comes with these booklets, and it doesn't have specs about the release in the back, which is unfortunate. But it doesn't have the specs about the release. But I do believe there's some information on the back of this. Let's look to the back for clues. It says. It doesn't say, but it is a new 4K UHD transfer. Let's see, maybe it says down here. It says 4K Ultra HD, the ultimate movie watching experiments. It says 4K resolution, 4 times sharper, but it doesn't talk about the specific what they did with this. Now I will say that this movie was shot like 4:9 or something like that, because you're gonna have bars on the side. Now with the lady killers, these were all shot like that. Like that was kind of the standard back then for the theater. It was kind of like the size of the the television sets back in the day. But the Lady Killers was also shot that way, but on here they have a version of it that's cropped in, and that was the version I watched first, not realizing that the correct way to watch these movies is with this, because when it's cropped in, it crops in the top, and it crops in the top. So it's like if you were looking at me here, it would be like cropped in like that probably. So it is cropped in. As far as the extras on here, they do have some extras they have an audio commentary with some historians. There's also there's a few other videos on here with like people talking about actually interviews with people sitting around talking about the film and things like that. There's something odd animated short called T for Teacher. I'm not sure why that's on here, but it's kind of cool that it's on there. So an older movie like this, that's kind of how the special features are typically going to go, because the people who worked on the film are all passed, unfortunately. There may be some of the kids in it might still be alive, but the main players here have passed away, so you're not going to be getting new interviews with them, and you got just people analyzing the film. This movie does have an HDR grading on the 4K release. Now, HDR typically applies to color, where it enhances or enriches the skin tones, makes everything look more lifelike. It brings colors to the screen that you're not used to seeing. Now, is it dramatic? Are you going to look at it and be like wowed? Probably not. But if you compare it to the previous versions, you will see a difference. And when you see that HDR, it's typically that HDR is going to matter. It can be 4K without HDR, and it won't look as good as when it has that HDR, unless they really just screwed the HDR up. Now, this is a black and white film. It's not color. So what does that mean in this? It does enhance the film. It makes the blacks deeper, much more. You see a lot more darker areas, and then the contrast in the midtones also looks very nice. So it does enhance. Even if it is black and white, it will enhance that picture as well. Now, before I rate this movie and this release, we're going to rank the previous Ealing Studios comedies from Studio Canal that star Alec Guinness, that I've previously rated and reviewed. At number 4, I'm going to put The Lavender Hill Mob. Now, all 4 of these movies are really good movies, but I have to put one of them last. So this is, by the way, this release is really fantastic. It is just as good as far as the physical packaging, as maybe even better. I do like this lavender color than the man in the white suit. I really do like the way that this release looks fantastic. Now, as far as the next movie, I'm going to give number 3, Kind Hearts and Coronets. This is a really dark comedy, but it doesn't. Alec Guinness plays several roles. I think 8 different characters in this one, but he's not the main character. But it is also fun. I'm going to put that at number 3. At number 2, I'm going to put The Man in the White Suit, and then at number 1, The Lady Killers. Now that may be a little cheap to put The Lady Killers first, but this is the one I saw, I think, originally of all of these, and I've seen the remake from the Coen brothers, which I haven't seen that one in a long time, but I remember not liking it very much. But I did see this one first, and the subtle dark humor in this one, I really, really dig that. And Alec Guinness is hilarious in it, and playing a little bit different type of character than he normally plays. So let's go ahead and rate The Man in the White Suit on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. I'm going to give this a 4-star rating. The movie is a really smart satire that holds up really nicely, and at the same time it's a product of its time because of the black and whiteness, but some of the ideas in this film are quite striking. As far as what Studio Canal has released in this limited edition set, this is probably the definitive edition of this movie, so I'm going to give it a 4.5-star rating. Very nice job by Studio Canal. Let me know if you've seen this movie or these other Studio Canal or Ealing Studios comedies. Let me know what you think about these films. And if you click on this box here, I'm going to make a playlist that has all 3 of the other ones in it, and this one too. If you click on that box, it's going to bring you to that playlist. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Thanks for watching.